welcome everybody. Wonderful to be back again on a Sunday morning with you all. I think we had a couple of technical glitches to get started today, but this is, I believe, the third in our ongoing monthly series of Baba Zoom events from Mayor Archive Collective. And we are looking forward to sharing some interesting information with you. Claire Barrett is with us here, our archive manager, Elaine Cox, who many of you know, and Jeanne Felknor are the three wonderful people who are going to be sharing different things about what's going on with the archive today. And I assume that everybody on here, I can't see everybody at the moment, but everyone looks mostly familiar faces, and I imagine everybody is familiar with Mayor Archive Collective, or MAC. If anybody perhaps isn't, and this is the first time, this is quite an ambitious project that's been going on for some time, creating an archive for Mayor Baba artifacts and things connected to his legacy for the benefit of future generations. We're renovating an old school building. You'll see some images of that later in Weaverville. And in addition to an archive and a library, we are also going to be supporting a variety of community events and activities in the future. Our priority at the moment is finishing getting ourselves into the building and working, establishing the archive and library and other facilities there. We are currently working on archiving, as you'll hear from Claire and a bit from Elaine, in our Asheville office, and are looking forward, hopefully by the end of this year, to being in our permanent location. So Heather, if you could just briefly move on to the first couple of slides just to share that information with people. Heather, hello.
Oh. Hi, Jeannie's having a hard time getting on.
Okay, can you move on to the first slide and the next slide, because we're waiting for Jeannie. She's going to be presenting a little bit later. So again, just for those of you who might not be familiar with this, to share with you the mission of this project is to collect, preserve, and share Mayor Baba's divine legacy of material artifacts and words with integrity, love, and transparency for the benefit of humanity. This is a project that's been dear to the hearts of many people. I think we've had over 10,000 hours of volunteer labor of a variety of kinds that has gone into it. And I think for all of us involved in this, it is really something that is both a privilege to have an opportunity to try to support this mission, but also something that we're doing not for ourselves or even our immediate family, but really trying to keep it as an eye to many generations to come. So that's kind of a little bit of the scope of what this is all about. Again, might be familiar news to most of you listening, but I wanted to make sure if we had any new people that you had that background. And we also have a quote of Baba's, of something he said to Mara, which is something that is, whoops, no, not that one. Oh, excuse me. Sorry, go ahead, Heather. I didn't, the slide had changed as I saw it last. Mara was apparently bringing an old, worn out sadra of Baba's to him, asking him if it was okay to get rid of it. To which he apparently said, "You have no idea what just one scrap of my sadra will mean to the world in the future." And the picture on this slide is something from a collection of Theus Malmberg's, which actually is a scrap of a sadra in a beautiful heart-shaped locket there. So part of the motivation here is really to try as best we can to preserve and share what we think of as the fragrance, the sense of connection with Baba for people in future generations. We talk about being in the post-Mandali era. We've been there for a little while, and a phrase that we've used previously So we're really moving in not too long from now into the post-Mondeley contact era, which means that all of us who had the great privilege of having contact with the Mondeley will no longer be around. And so connections with the fragrance that so many of us had the great privilege of experiencing, particularly in time spent with the Mondeley and Meherabad and Meherabad, will no longer be accessible, will no longer be there for people. And we're hoping that the effort to preserve and share, both physically and digitally, a variety of material will help provide a link for future generations to come. So that's a little bit of an overview. And I believe Claire is starting first. Is that right, Heather?
Next up is Elaine,
Elaine,
presenting new acquisitions.
Okay, excuse me, I had the order a little jumbled. Many of you, if not all of you, know of Elaine Cox, a longtime Baba lover, spent many years in India with the Mondeley, has deep experience of her contact there. She also worked very closely with the archives there, training under Dot Lesnick, and additionally had the great benefit of seeing firsthand how the Mondeley cared for things connected to Baba, whether it was some of his hair or sadra or many other types of materials. And I think she brings that care and devotion and passion that she felt the Mondeley had for these materials to her work with Mac, and it's a great thing that she is with us and having a central role in the archive and its work. So I think I'm going to turn it over to Elaine, who's going to share some new items that have come to Mac and some background about them. So Elaine, over to you. Elaine?
Oh, sorry. You can hear me. Okay, now you can hear me. Thank you so much, Scott. That's a great introduction. Hello and welcome to everyone there. As he said, I'm Elaine Cox, and today I wanted to show you some of the acquisitions that we have. Some are new and one or two have been with us for a little while. Excuse me. So let's have the next slide, please. Okay. This is a very large scale painting by Roger Stevens. And he did this painting. It was donated by Roger, of course, as part of his larger collection. And he did this painting as a stage prop for the Southeast Gathering. And he painted it from Baba's 1968 passport photo. Next slide, please. No, the next slide has a picture of the painting with it.
I'm showing that picture.
I don't see it. Does anyone else see it? I don't see it on my screen.
It's the picture of you with the painting.
Okay. Does everyone else see it? Okay, it's not on my screen. I don't know why. It's just the dimensions. Anyway, the dimensions of the painting are there, so you can see. Oh, there it is. All right. You can see the scale by the person standing there, and that person is 5 feet and 3 inches tall. So that tells you exactly, the painting is almost exactly 5 feet. It's quite amazing. And of course he did it, as a stage prop. So we will hopefully use it again, just like that. Okay, next slide, please. This is one of Baba's flags. This is from the Hetty Johnson and Nick Hawthorne Johnson collection. It was flown from the tower flagpole on top of the study hall on Meherabad Hill. An American young man named Gabe Mednick was living and working at Meherabad in the 90s. And he was asked to remove this old tattered flag from the flagpole and replace it with a new one. And he took it down, of course, and kept it aside. And it so happened at that time that Gabe asked Hetty Johnson to send him some new guitar strings from America because he couldn't get ones he liked there in India. She did that. And as a thank you, he gave her this well-worn flag. This flag will be kept, washed archivally. It is rather dirty and it's been folded up, as you can see, for many years. And it will be washed and refolded with padding and kept in our collection. Okay, next slide, please. Oh, there is some information that I would love, yes, that I would love for you, Heather, to read about the history of the flag. I don't have all of that, but Heather has it.
Okay, it's the quote that's up on the screen, and it's from Lord Maher. This is it's Baba's quote. Do you know why I suggested a 7-colored flag? The 7 colors represent the 7 planes of consciousness. These colors also represent sanskaras, impressions. The colors in the flag signify man's rise from the grossest of impressions of lust and anger, symbolized by red, to the culmination in the highest state of spirituality and oneness with God, symbolized by sky blue.
Okay, thank you, Heather. Okay, so then the next slide, please. Okay, this is the tower and the flagpole where that flag flies. It's on top of the study hall. Now, this study hall was built up in 1938 on top of the old British water tank, as you can see. And it was the dormitory, if you will, for the Western women in the ashram. In those years, and in these years now, it is a study hall for pilgrims to use, and the library, which you can barely make out in the clump of trees on the left of the picture. The library is right there, and the study hall is very quiet and very good for anything like meditation or study. Next slide, please. Now, in the same collection, what we have here is a beautiful display of Baba's hair. It was given to Nick Hawthorne Johnson by Mera on Nick's 7th birthday at Meherabad. Mera was so very pleased that Nick was born on Baba's birthday. So there was a big celebration going on. And that is why she gave this hair. And it's just really beautiful. It looks like it's Baba's hair from the 50s, we think, because of the color of it. And the women would collect every hair out of Baba's brush. And that's why it comes in little clumps like that. Okay, yes, and Nick was also born at 5:15 a.m. Baba was born same day at 5 a.m. as we know. Okay, and next to it, you can see a piece of mortar, and Hetty Johnson picked it up off the ground right next to the north wall of the Samadhi in 1969 at the last darshan. And it's also referred to as the Great Darshan. And of course, it came out of from between the stones on the wall of the Samadhi. Okay, next slide, please. Here we have Ronald Gailey's art supplies. And these are from the collection of Will David. Also given to us by Will David, of course. There's 3 tubes of paint, 3 brushes, a small roll of canvas, and drawing and colored pencils as well. And the little box that the pencils went in. And there's a book there, and it's about what you see there. It's hard to read, but it's about the techniques of painting, to study the techniques of painting. Very sweet. Now, Ronald Gailey was a resident artist who had studied at the Art Institute in New York City. And she was a permanent resident at Meherabad. She lived with the other women Mandali. She did many wonderful drawings of Baba. And she painted the most amazing paintings. Next slide, please. Do we have those? These are the other brushes and the pencils, colored pencils. Oh, and also I forgot to mention that there was some oil there. Okay, Ronald did these paintings and these charts. Now they're absolutely amazing. The large one on the left is what we call the 10-layer cake, but it represents the different rings of Baba's followers, his circles, the 10-circle chart.
That's a detail from the 10-circle chart on the right. This is the only painting I put up, Elaine.
Oh, okay. Okay. Yes. Well, this detail shows you the upper left-hand corner or part of it. And it shows you a part of this painting of these characters in a jungle-like environment here. The painting is horizontal and it's very fine detail, and it has some very interesting characters in it. And all of the symbols on this painting is about, I think, 9 to 10 feet high. It's really large. And it's in the museum on the hill in that building that we just saw underneath the study hall. And it is extraordinary. She painted this under direct instruction from Baba. She didn't make up any of this. This was very, very particular. So I just wanted, and there are some who don't know about Rano. And she died, she passed there in India. What a wonderful life she led. Okay, I think next painting then. Next slide. Yes, thank you. Now this is a letter, and it's a letter from the Jack Mormon collection. And it is signed by Meherabad. There's an original signature there. This letter comes before the time when Baba sent out printed life circulars to groups. And so to communicate with groups, what he would do is have Faramji working boxwala type up letters using up to 6 pieces of carbon paper. And Baba would sign each and every carbon copy. And then those were sent out to the groups. There weren't so many groups and they weren't so large at that time. So it was possible, but it's just thinking about it is kind of amazing. This was given to Jack by Mansari in her kitchen. She had it in a trunk in her back room where she slept, and along with many other things. And Jack got confirmation from Baba's sister Mani concerning his signing of every copy of these letters. Mani was very clear that he understood that each copy, even though it was carbon copy, was signed by Baba. Okay, and I think that's, yes,
as Jack Mormon told me, he went straight to Mani and asked Mani, did Baba sign each and every one? And she said, oh yes, for authority.
Yes.
Held up her finger and said, for authority.
That's a very important point. So thank you very much. I think that is all of the new things that I have today. And if you have any questions, there will be a time to answer those at the end, if we can. And Heather and I can answer anything if we know. Thank you. Jai Baba.
Scott, you're muted. Scott?
Yep, got it. Thanks, Elaine, for sharing that, and also the background. And it's an example that the background stories are really important to the flavor and the context. And one of the things that we're very intent on preserving, and also encouraging people in the material you might have yourselves to make sure that you record whatever other details, whatever details are connected to the object or whatever it is in terms of your experience, who it came from, the context, because that adds a layer of richness and understanding for the future. And
yes, I'd just like to throw in here that that is very important for everyone, anyone who has something of Baba's, is the provenance, is to keep a record of every hand that it passed through and every detail that you know concerning that item. Thank you. I just wanted to add that.
Sure, thank you. And I just want to finally say, I really, I appreciate your halo, Elaine. As you are on the screen, there's a beautiful orb that is surrounding your head. So that's.
Oh, I'm sorry if my halo's showing again.
Great. Okay. So I'd like to turn it over to Claire. Before doing so, I forgot to mention introductions. Most of you know Heather Mashandaro, who is also instrumental in putting these programs together. She's our administrative coordinator, currently living down in Myrtle Beach, with a rich history of work in the Baba world, and also experience working at the Metropolitan Museum in New York. So we have a lot of benefit from her background and skills. So it's my pleasure to introduce Claire Barrett to you. I believe for many of you, the first time you'll have a chance to see and hear from her. Claire recently joined us and is our archive manager. She has a master in library science, specializing in archiving, and I believe a background in art history as well, and is a wonderful, enthusiastic addition to the MAC team and MAC family, both with a great deal of professional expertise, and also, if I can say so, a wonderful heart, and wonderful to see your enthusiasm jumping in to help us, and your beautiful smile right now as well. So turn it over to you, Claire, and Claire's going to share some of her insight and perspective regarding the treatment and preservation of some material. So Claire, over to you.
All right. Thank you. That was a very sweet introduction. Good morning, everyone. A bunch of new faces that I haven't seen before. This is very exciting. I hope you're having a good morning and you're ready to learn some things. So, Heather, you can pull up my first slide, please. Thank you. Okay, fantastic. So, today you're going to learn some archival magic. That's what I like to call it. It's a very brief crash course in paper preservation. So we're going to be talking about how to make sure that your letters, pamphlets, photographs, all those very precious things are kept in the best condition possible. And I have a picture on the screen of the letter from the Jack Mormon collection that Elaine just talked about. This is one of my favorite items in the collection that I have handled so far. And I'll talk a little bit more about that in a few minutes, because it's a really good example of why doing this kind of stuff is so important with the items you have at home, because there's always something you can learn about things. So can I have the next slide, please? So, paper preservation for archival quality. Sounds a little bit intimidating if you're new to it, but I can promise that it's not actually as scary as you think, not nearly quite as complex as you might assume it would be. Because truth be told, the worst thing that you can do for any of these items that you have in your collection really is to do nothing. If you make even a simple effort to provide them the best housing possible, it will make an enormous difference in how long they last, because we want these things to be around for as long as physically possible for these things, because we have some incredible objects in our collection so far, and I'm sure all of you guys have something really particularly precious at home as well. And going back to that beautiful quote that Scott mentioned earlier, that's kind of what I consider to be the essential core of archival preservation, that when an object like this, these really important objects are in our collection, we don't just own them, we're kind of its caretaker. And we owe it the best conditions that we're able to provide, whether that's perfect museum level archival or just, your best efforts, because anything will make a big difference, I promise. So can I have the next slide, please? Okay. Very first step is gathering all of your supplies. Now, if you do research on archival supplies, you'll find that there is a ton of stuff out there these days. Some of it's more simple, some of it's really advanced. And this is where I think a lot of people get overwhelmed. But you don't have to go with any of the really advanced stuff. I'm not expecting you to drop big bucks on getting the fancy kind of equipment. Most of the things that I think are the most essential can be found, at a variety of different places. You can even get it at Amazon. There's a few archival shops, such as University Products, Gaylord, B&H, Archival Methods. And actually some of these you can even just get at Staples or an art supply store. So the most important supplies are going to be acid-free printer paper, acid-free plain manila folders, acid-free tissue paper, acid-free boxes. You're going to hear me say acid-free quite a lot. That is very important when you're looking for supplies. And then you might also want to consider investing in a palette knife, some Mylar photo sleeves, paintbrushes, and even acid-free sheet protectors. So again, acid-free, most important quality for archival supplies. And I'll tell you why in just a minute. Can I have the next slide, Heather? So this is an example of some of the boxes that you might want to look at. Unfortunately, we can't all just go down to U-Haul and get some cardboard boxes. Those aren't going to quite do it. You want to get these archival grade boxes. You notice for the two boxes on the left, they have metal reinforcements on the corners. It's very common for the smaller archival boxes just to make sure that they hold up better. And again, these are acid-free. They're going to provide the best seal to keep pests and dust out. So very, very important to get one of these. And before you buy boxes, I gotta say, make sure you know how big your stuff is, because you don't want to end up with a box that is too big or too small. So next slide, please. Tissue paper, acid-free tissue paper, very, very important. This is a little bit more important when you're handling physical objects. You would wrap it in the tissue paper just to provide some padding. But again, if you have just a few documents, for example, and you put them into the document size box, you might want to get some acid-free tissue paper to crumple up and kind of stuff in there, because when those papers are in a box, they're going to want to fold over, bend. We don't want any kind of creasing or anything like that. So these serve a number of purposes. So next slide, please. Paper. This is one of the most important things. This, you can just honestly get this at Staples or any kind of office supply store. In general, all printer paper and copy paper that is white, so no color paper, is going to be acid-free, and it will do wonders for your collection. So this is probably the thing you're going to need the most of when you're archiving paper. You go through quite a lot of this. So if you want to, you can get the recycled paper that tends to also be acid-free, but just make sure, again, that you're checking the box and make sure it says acid-free. So, okay, next slide, please. So, in addition to all these supplies, there's a few resources that I'm going to recommend for y'all to read if you so choose. First one is the Gaylord Archival. They have under their resources tab 2 sections. You can see professional gets a little bit more in depth, a bit more advanced, but you probably want to start with the personal section. That's just for people who are starting out and doing at home archiving, but very interesting reads and worth the time. And then next, yes.
I would like to add to that discussion of the papers, both of the papers, the regular paper and the tissue paper. The most common use for them is to place them between 2 sheets of a letter. Let's say you have a letter that's old, and one on top and one on bottom. So you sandwich it, or you leave each page of paper with one of these acid-free pieces of paper.
Yes.
It helps to stop the deterioration of the old paper.
Mhm.
and
Very,
the
very
acidity.
important.
Yes, thank you.
Yes.
Just wanted
Thank
to add
you. Okay, so can I have the next slide, Heather? And this is the other resource I'm going to recommend. Archival Methods has a blog section, and they tend to have these little brief articles dedicated to one specific topic of archiving. So you can sort through and find one the most relevant to what you're looking for. And it will also have links to different supplies that they recommend. So if you're doing just photographs or just slides, this is a really good source to get started. Thank you. Can I have the next one? Okay. Now this might seem a little obvious, but before you get started with anything, make sure that both your hands and whatever your workspace is going to be is very, very clean. Even if our hands feel clean, there's going to be obviously skin oil on them, and that can build up and really cause discoloration and damage over time. So wash your hands very well, and then consider using some white cotton gloves. It's another important thing that you can get at most stores when you're handling things. That's most important when you're handling something particularly delicate, like a photograph or anything on onion skin paper, but it never hurts to use gloves. Always a good idea. So, better safe than sorry, honestly, is the guiding rule for this. So, can I have the next slide? Now, a little bit of basic maintenance for your objects, featuring some lovely photos of our wonderful Elaine Cox. We love her so much. This is where that palette knife and the paintbrushes come in. When you're going through your papers, there might be paper clips or staples or, God forbid, Scotch tape. As an archivist, kind of hate Scotch tape. Those things are going to deteriorate or rust over time, and they're going to cause some damage. So as you can see, Elaine demonstrating on the right, you want to remove the staples or paper clips very, very gently. I would recommend using a palette knife versus a staple remover. As a staple remover, if you've ever used one, they can be a little bit rough, and they're more likely to cause tears in the paper. And then if there's any kind of dust, just lightly brush it with a paintbrush. You don't have to be very aggressive, and definitely do not use any kind of cleaning liquids, even things that are more gentle, because we don't want any kind of liquids touching any of these items, especially photographs. So that's a big no-no. Now, can I have the next slide? Okay, now I'm going to put things into folders next. And like Elaine talked about, I like to explain this kind of people as a lasagna method. So you're going to want to put photographs or letters into Mylar sleeves. Those are really important. And then in between the Mylar, or if you're not using Mylar at all, you want to put printer paper. Printer paper and the manila folders are really important because, being acid-free, they will absorb any of the acid that is in paper, especially if there's ink on it or if people have touched it with their hands. And so that will help prevent some discoloration and deterioration over time. So on the left of your screen, we have the Jack Mormon letter that I took out of its frame recently and found a couple things inside of it. It wasn't just a letter. There were 2 notes from Jack himself, just giving some information about the letter, where it had come from, all that good stuff. So that's why I say, even if you think you know your objects, taking some time with them, just kind of get reacquainted, is always a good idea, and it's super fun. It makes you feel like an archaeologist. So you see here I have paper, the first object, paper, next object, so on and so forth. So you want to make good use of that lasagna method, like I like to call it. So hope that makes sense. Can I have the next slide, please? Now, While you are going through all of your objects, getting them into folders, getting them into boxes, you want to take some time to jot down a list of what you have. And you'll start off with the very basic things of what is it, what date was it written, if it's a letter, who was it written by and who was it sent to, where were both parties when the letter was sent and received, all of that good stuff. And that's really, really important. But the most important thing that you can jot down is the stories. So can I have the next slide? The stories are what makes them really, really important and just make them come to life. So on the screen, we have this beautiful photograph taken by Roger Stevens of Erich Jesawala, telling a spiritual allegory to pilgrims while watching the villagers make sugar. And this photograph is beautiful on its own, but then you learn more about it and you feel really connected with it. So next slide, Heather. So you see these two more photographs from that collection, absolutely gorgeous. And then the story connected to them. On the way to the Elora Caves, with Erich leading the group, Roger and other pilgrims stopped at a village near Happy Valley, where Sita and Ram stayed while they were in exile. The villagers were busy making sugar. Erich explained to everyone how the sugar is made. The sugarcane juice is cooked in a large cauldron and the impurities are taken out. Erich told the villagers of the spiritual allegory that went along with what they were witnessing. That when we are his, he boils us in the cauldron of his love and skims off the impurities which come to the top. He lovingly removes the impurities and then only the sweetness remains. So you hear that and it gives you chills. It makes you feel like you're there. These stories are the most important thing to write down. You genuinely do not know what detail someone might want to know in the future about your items. So literally anything that comes to mind, even the tiniest bit of information you have, is vital. So I promise, people want to hear your stories. It is the most exciting part. So can I have the next slide then, Heather? While we're speaking about photographs in particular, you have to take some special care for. Photographs, if you've ever tended to have a stack of them, they kind of stick together a little bit. And on the screen here, there's a few different items that you can use for photographs. There are special boxes and sheet protectors for slides and film, photograph sleeves of different size. So you want to make sure that these are stacked individually. So just put one in a pocket because we do not want them sticking together, because if there's even a tiny bit of humidity that touches them, they're going to fuse, and then taking them apart, you're going to lose a lot of the beautiful picture. So. And then the next slide, please. Oh, now this is the part that might be a little bit boring. I promise it's going to be really fun though, because like I said, this kind of makes me feel like an archaeologist when I do this stuff. So it is well worth the time. You want to scan any photographs that you have, because if hopefully not, if something ever happens to the physical objects, we want to have a scanned copy of them. Now, the format when you're scanning is really important here. When I'm scanning, I tend to use what's called a TIFF format, TIFF, and that is the best archival grade scanning. It saves all the information about the photograph. It has the best resolution for the image, but those files are really big. So if you don't have enough space on your computer for that, then the next kind of file type that I would recommend is something called a PNG file. And that's also really good image quality, but the file isn't quite as big, doesn't take up quite as much space in your computer. And then please, no matter what you do, don't scan things as a JPEG. It is probably the most common image file type out there, but it's actually the worst, because anytime you open it or share it with someone, it actually loses a little bit of the information. It's kind of like you're playing a game of telephone. So each time you share it, each time you open that photo up, it's actually going to get less and less information. So, and when you're scanning, you're going to see a part on the scanning screen where it asks for the DPI, and and that's just the image resolution. And I would want to set that as 600 or higher. So, okay. I know a lot of techno jargon, but trust me, well worth learning. And it's actually pretty cool. I enjoy doing this stuff. I am an archivist, so I love scanning. So next slide, please. Oh, here's the fun stuff. Meher Archive Collective is actually collecting Baba treasures. Some people don't know that we're still collecting, but we are. These include not only precious objects, but photos of your pilgrimage, photos of the mandali, important letters, handwritten historical accounts, and personal memoirs. And we also offer assistance and guidance in preserving and keeping your treasures for posterity, regardless of which archive you leave your treasures with, or if your treasures stay within your family. Can I have the next slide? But if you do donate to the Meher Archive Collective, we will preserve your collection. In the case of a promised gift, we will collaborate with you to preserve your collection, and we will help preserve your collection in exchange for digital rights. So that would be scans that we could then use, which we will upload to our future database with your name attached to it. Very, very exciting. And any physical treasures that you donate will be available to the public at the Meher Archive building when we get in there, which is hopefully very soon. So regardless of whether you donate items physically or just give us a scanned copy, it will be tremendously useful, much appreciated by us and everyone in the future. So, can I have the next slide? Oh. Thank you for having me here today. I'm going to put something in the chat really quick. It has just a list of some of the types of archival supplies that I talked about. You don't have to get the exact ones, just kind of a guideline for when you start doing this, because I hope some of you guys are going to be rushing to your collection after this and start archiving. So, thank you.
Thank you, Claire.
Thank you. It was fun.
Good. Glad you enjoyed sharing that with us. Wonderful to get a little information. And again, thank you so much for everything that you're bringing, both your skills and your wonderful enthusiasm to this project. Really appreciate that.
Of course. Well, thank you for welcoming me in. Everyone has been so kind, and I've only been here since June, but everyone that I have met has just been one of the sweetest people I've ever met in my entire life. So I'm having an absolute blast.
Good. Glad to hear it. Terrific. One thing that it's really valuable information that Claire's just shared with us all about what we can do with those things that we have, for those of you that feel inclined to do so. And we're also very open to receiving, as we have very much in the past, a box, and the box will have a whole variety of things in it, photographs, papers that we have to do the sorting of, and we're certainly equipped and willing to do that. That's part of how we have things set up. And to the extent that you can do something to help preserve the material yourself, that obviously helps, particularly the stories, because if we get a box of your precious Baba material, either directly from you or from those who are dealing with your affairs after you're gone, to the extent that there's information about what's in the box, it really helps. And Roger Stevens shared with us last month, there's a tremendous amount of material from both of his parents, and there were some things that he had that he shared with us that were clearly special, I believe, to his mother, but it really wasn't clear to him what in the world these things were, or what the significance was, and that they had some connection to Baba, to India, obviously, but the information wasn't available about what was this and what was the context. So that's one thing that's really kind of the most important thing. You have a list of what you've got, and you have a list of where it is, and any stories connected to it, and what you want done with it, whether it's giving it to Meher Archive Collective or another archive, or to family members. And one thing that we strongly advise that if you want to give it to your children or other family members, of course, if it's something that they will cherish, but we highly recommend that you have a discussion to make sure it's something they want and will care for, and have some agreement also about the future disposition of this material. What are they committing to do with it? Again, it's just our primary mission, our primary goal is for things not to get lost. And so everything Claire just shared with you about how to protect things in your own home is vital. But also these other things are important to make sure that things don't get lost or forgotten along the way. So anyway.
Yeah, and it's definitely worth taking that time and effort. It really actually is incredibly fun. Because I said it sounds very overwhelming, but it really is incredibly meaningful. Even if you don't ever donate these things, even if it just stays with you or you give it to your children, spending some time with your treasures is just, it's never a bad idea. It's always fun. It's always worth it.
Great. True. Okay. Thank you, Claire.
Thank you.
So we're going to go into the third portion of our time today, after which is going to be opportunity for questions and discussions, as I think Heather mentioned early on. Next up, we'd like to have Jeanne Felknor join us. And Jeanne is one of the very key people in the whole operation from the beginning, volunteer and coordinator of many things at the building. I like to say volunteer extraordinaire. Jeanne's dedication is something that I find quite extraordinary and humbling, because she has been out at this beautiful building almost every day in any kind of weather imaginable. And there is no heating or cooling in this building at the moment. It's coming, but it's part of the long-term renovation that's all being redone. So I've seen Jeanne there in all manner of weather, with all manner of protective gear and clothing in all the elements, with just such beautiful dedication to Baba and this project. So I just want to acknowledge Jeanne in that regard. And Jeanne's going to share with us now some information about some of the recent exciting things that are happening at the site. So Jeanne Felknor, over to you.
Hi there. And I just want to say, Claire, oh God, I just love you. And I was thinking that same thing, Scott. Because I'm just going to take my drawer full of stuff and bring it to Mac, and which will be coming up soon, and let Mac brush it and rub it with white gloves and scan it. Because to Claire, that's really fun. But to me, working on this physical building is really fun. So this first picture is, I like to start my tours with the whole picture, and I like to break this giant building up into 4 quadrants. So our main focus is on the upper left hand, which is the north side of the building, and the upper quadrant, which will be where Mayer Archive collective work will be mostly housed. So our main order of business was to get this roof completely redone, restructured, and we put eaves on the building, and now it's, ready to roll. And come on in now. Next slide. Come on in. So here's our auditorium. And what I want you to pick up from this picture is the fact that we don't waste a single scrap of wood. Everything that comes out of this building is recycled. We don't waste a penny. And we want our people, everyone, to know that. We respect every single cent that comes in for this building. And so this is our auditorium, which will be done in phase 3. We're on phase 1 right now. Right now it's our makeshift wood shop. Next slide. This is just a picture of the the downstairs corridor and the steps going up into the attic. So we have access to our huge attic. We also have airflow ventilation up there. We're not going to take you up into the attic right now, but we have a beautiful galley walkway up there and tons of storage in this building. We're always in mind when working on this building is hundreds of years to come. So we are creating this space to be dried in, waterproof, moisture-proof, bug-proof, standing strong for hundreds of years. This is what's on our mind as we do this project. Next slide. Well, this is just an example of really the beauty of this building. Well, it doesn't have a ton of bells and whistles. It's strong as heck. And these are the old plaster walls that have been replastered by our guys. A volunteer, Peter, and our two guys, which you'll see coming up, our two muscly strong guys. Not saying that Peter's not muscly and strong, because, you know, he used to be back in the 80s. But anyway, these are the guys learned a skill of plastering, which is a very lost art in the world now because people just, you know, hang sheetrock. But plaster is strong and it's made to last for hundreds and hundreds of years. So we have two stair towers in this building, a north stair tower and a south stair tower, and they're so beautiful and bright. And these big giant walls are just crying for big giant paintings of Baba, Roger. So that's wonderful. So next slide. Well, this is an example of how we took some of these huge classrooms. This school is a K through 12 school since 1928, and divided them up into different sized rooms. So that meant, you know, not blowing, but jackhammering holes through walls and creating new rooms. So you see the metal studs, and this isn't that exciting of a picture, but you can start to see in this picture the plumbing that is inside these walls. So the plumbing is complete, electrical is complete, HVAC is complete, insulation is happening as we speak, and starting next Thursday, thank you, will come our big hall of sheetrock, and that's when we start creating these rooms, and I'll tell you exactly why in the next slide. Look at that plumbing, guys. Isn't that exciting? So that's a lot of plumbing. You can see both PVC and copper. Really exciting stuff inside these walls, which will be covered up soon and you won't see it. So I wanted everyone to take a peek, see now. Moving on. Again, this is really exciting. Peter pointing to some plumbing. This is one of the 5 bathrooms, which is downstairs. Go ahead. Oh man, this happened this week, guys. This is the spray foam insulation, which is all sprayed on all of the exterior walls in the building. And this is to create an absolute moisture-proof environment. The guys have already started hanging sheetrock here and there. And they're big 12-foot sheets. And it's just really exciting because this is now when the rooms will start to take shape. Moving right on. Oh, our construction site staff. Well, this is Jamie Zimmerman over here on your left, posing with his handy dandy plaster work. And Connor, all tatted up over here on your right. Moving on. Okay, so is this Oh, this is the photo montage of our two guys. So here's the story with these two guys. They really are such lovely guys. And they live on the property. We have a beautiful caretaker's cottage, and they live there with Hazel and Shadow, their dogs. And they work Monday through Friday. And then they also, sorry, that's my dog. They also maintain, right, come here. They also maintain the site. They do the groundskeeping. Moving on.
It's time to share the video.
Oh, goody. Thank God. I'll mute because there's a cat in my backyard and Rumi is.
Got it. I can't mute. You'll hear it from my screen. Okay. All right, everybody. Here's a little video we made, Jeannie made of the guys, and just asking them a little bit about themselves, where they're from. So here we go.
Chances are you might have come out to the Red Oak School and run into one or two of these guys. So we thought it might be nice for you to get to know these guys a little better. We're standing here with Peter Nordine, Connor McCauley, and Jamie Zimmerman. Jamie, you tell us where you're from and how you got involved in this project, and what kind of a journey it's been since you've been here. And Connor, the same for you. I mean, what a journey from where we started and where we are, huh?
Certainly has been.
Talk to me about it.
I am from New Haven, Connecticut, but I grew up in Florida. And how I got involved in the project is my dad, Fred, has been a Baba lover for many, many years. And so I was part of the community growing up, and I needed some work and y'all needed some help. And so here I am. And it's pretty incredible how far the project has come since I started almost 2 years ago now. It's almost unrecognizable. So definitely quite an adventure.
Lots to have experienced, huh?
Yes, indeed.
For example, what?
I mean, just all the different varieties of projects we do in the building is so extensive. You know, you just have the opportunity to gain so much different knowledge and skills, and especially working with Peter is, you know, he's just a wealth of knowledge. So it's been quite an experience getting all of that.
How was that plumbing experience?
I'm not going to say it was a nightmare, but it was fun.
It was fun, and now you know how to plumb a place.
Yeah. Yes, very complicated. Yep.
Yeah.
At moments frustrating, but pretty rewarding in the end. So
Yeah. What about you, Con?
I'm from Central West Virginia. I came down to visit James last January, saw the project, and was immediately interested. I think I called him pretty much the week after I'd gotten back home and asked if I could come down and work. I got the okay, and I've been here since April of last year. Project's been great. You know, James said just about everything I would have said. It can be frustrating at times, but learning a ton from Peter. And we just get to do everything you see, we get to do.
Yeah, it's like the Army, the toughest job you'll ever love, or something like that.
How many feet of wire so far?
Oh,
MC?
oof. I don't know, thousands and thousands of feet. Yeah.
I mean, just the camera wire was almost 4,000 feet.
Yeah. And what was that for security?
For security cameras.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's gotta be, I don't know, 10,000 feet of wire in here more. Yeah.
And Connor, are you an electrician?
I am, yeah.
So we were fortunate to get that.
Yeah, it was good for both of
Get
us.
that, and then we got a lot of muscle. Can I see your muscles? Jamie, can I see you? Well, it was really great to get to know you guys. Any parting words of wisdom that you would like to impart upon our Zoom watchers?
Keep your head in it.
Come check out progress.
Yeah,
Come help.
there you go. That'd be nice, hey?
Yeah.
Yeah, if you know how to mud, come on.
Or use a vacuum.
Oh,
or
heck
any of that.
yeah. Good. Okay, thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Okay, Scott, you want to follow it up with the last couple slides?
Sure. Thank you, Jeannie. Always wonderful to hear you sharing what's going on and getting an insight into that. And again, another one of Baba's, you talk about eternal flames, but I think there's eternal fonts of enthusiasm, and Jeannie, certainly you bring that all the time, and it's always a pleasure. And your energy and smile always, I know it always brightens up my day, and I'm sure it does to everybody else that you connect with. So
Yay.
glad.
And just so you know, this is my opportunity. I see this as my opportunity that Baba gave to me. I don't know what the results of any of this will be because I can't see the future, but I look at this as my opportunity. And definitely Baba does work on us as we work for him.
Yes,
And
absolutely.
I love it.
Wonderful. It's one thing we've heard from a variety of people. Some people who come out on more of an occasional basis to help when we've had days with people coming out to help with some basic stuff of cleaning or moving debris when we were doing that some time ago. And I was always struck that in the course of just expressing appreciation for people taking time to come and help out, that over and over again, what I heard, which I found so moving, was that the people felt that it was a privilege and a great experience for them to be able to contribute to something connected to Baba, to in some way be working for Baba or for the mission of preserving his impact on all of us in the world. So it's lovely to be involved with everybody, particularly people who are feeling that it's a blessing to do it. And I certainly can share that myself personally, and the work on the board. I think all the board members feel that too. It's not been an easy journey, and as Jeannie said, Baba's working on us all the time. So there's no shortage of, as they say, opportunities to learn and grow. So really happy to share all this with you. And I think there's a couple of last slides that Heather has, just with some information that most of you probably know already. This is a picture of who's there besides Mani. I don't know who the other two are there, waving goodbye at the 1969 darshan in Guru
It's
Prasad.
Katie and Naja.
That's
Katie?
Katie and Naja. Wow.
Mhm.
That's a young Katie there. I hadn't seen pictures of her from that particular time. So we're very happy to have shared this time with you, and happy for your involvement and your support. There's information on the last slide about a website, an email address for general questions, a link to a donations page. As I said, we're completely dependent on both donations of time and financial resources to make this possible. And with Baba's help, that has been ongoing. We've just launched a rather ambitious fundraising drive to help us raise the funds to get us in the building and keep our operations going over the coming period. So welcome and encourage you to participate and be part of this in any way that you can. And I think now it's an opportunity to open the floor for general comments. If you have questions for Elaine or Claire or Jeannie, or more general questions about MAC, be very happy to or your own comments. Very happy to open things up for that now. So I guess there's virtual Zoom hands that most of you are familiar with, or raising physical hands if you have a question or any comments.
So is someone going to call on us?
If you raise your hand, yes, thank you. Hi, Cheryl.
Hi, Scott. This was wonderful. I love the logo. I don't know who did the logo, but I love in Baba's, what Dr. Donkin had done originally, and you've put Mac there in the center. I think that's fabulous. Congratulations. And the other thing I want to say is that, well, two things. One, it was fantastic to see the video and the photos of Mac. It really helps inspire me. I would think it would do the same with other people. I missed the last meeting. I have it. You recorded it, thank God. So I will see it at some point. And the third thing I want to say is that just the comment that Claire made about white gloves are not necessary. I had a boyfriend back in the 70s who was a collector of very old photographs, early photographs, daguerreotypes, carte de visites, albumin prints, silver bromides, and he always wore white gloves. I'm going to say is not necessary. Comment is, I would nix that and say it is very necessary when you're handling any photograph, paper, Baba's, whatever people have, Baba's shoes, Sadra, you know, to be wearing white gloves because hands have acid. So that's my comment about that. And then just thank you.
I do agree with that. Thank you.
And I would delete that if possible. That's my opinion. And, you know, so, but that was the perspective you never, I wasn't even allowed with white, you know, to touch these photographs. This is a man who was a boyfriend who was collecting it for a very, very wealthy collector in New York City. And that's how back in the 70s, things were handled. Okay, Jay Baba, thank you so much.
Carol, some of the archive rules have changed over time. So there is a rule.
Yeah.
Yeah,
For some things these days, actually gloves are definitely not recommended because there are certain types of like delicate objects where the glove can sort of tear it can catch on it, or if you're handling something particularly fragile, you really need to be able to feel exactly how it feels in your hand, because the glove kind of makes you not quite as it sort of deadens how you can feel when you're holding something in a glove. You don't feel it quite as well as when you're handling it with your hands. So that's why I say I wouldn't necessarily say it's across the board necessary. I guess I should have clarified that. For certain things like photographs, onion skin paper, absolutely. I would never touch anything like that with my bare hands if I could avoid it. But
yeah, I could just add something to that. It is a little bit more difficult to learn to handle paper, especially fine paper, with gloves. But if you have a lot of it to do, I recommend, I have allowed people to handle some letters without gloves in our volunteer work. But once you get used to doing it, even with gloves and the use of those palette knives to lift them up, you can learn to do it without damaging the paper, crinkling it or anything. It's not as clumsy as you might think. It just takes a little bit of practice. And I recommend gloves, yes.
Yep. Okay, thank you. Any other questions? Comments?
Thank you.
Chris, please.
Thank you all for the work you're doing and for this presentation. Very nice.
And thank you, Chris. You've taken some of the wonderful photographs. I'd like to give credit to Chris, who's taken some of the wonderful photographs.
yeah, he is
of these
incredibly skilled.
Collected pieces, yes. You've done a great job.
My pleasure.
And thank you, Roger, for your enthusiasm and in sharing the collection. And we have so much more to go through.
Yep.
And Cheryl has, we need to feature Cheryl's treasures on Ababa Zoom as well. She and I have talked about that. She has made promised gifts to Mac. Excuse me.
Right.
She would be a donor.
And what I want to say is, although Roger didn't like it when I told him, I have one of his wonderful big Baba paintings that he did for the Southeast Gathering. I, however, to preserve it, took it to a frame shop, and it is all archivally closed in a frame and glass, which he said he didn't like, but that will be another big piece of art, along with what's behind me, Steve Jameson's Walk to the Beach. Woden, the original of that he painted that has Ivy Deuce in it, Elizabeth Patterson,
Probably Kitty.
Kitty, Darwin, when Baba was here and carried to the beach, and the women are carrying him, and it's behind me, and that will be going to MAC. Plus this very big poster that Roger did that I just loved as a companion piece to the one that he's donated of himself. But mine is in glass.
Okay.
It was renting. The person who had originally bought it at the Southeast Gathering, it had gotten the whole, about a fifth of it was beginning to bend and crack because it's on whatever board that Roger had originally painted these paintings on. And I thought it's just going to get worse. So there you have it. Yes.
I would just like to remind everybody to share your comments on the YouTube when it's published. We will take this video and publish it on Max YouTube, and also Angela will publish it on Meherabad Family. And please like, share, and subscribe. Okay. And it's been a pleasure to do these. There will be more coming. We'll have another one on September 24th, I believe. Just check that. Yeah, September 24th will be our next show. And we have all kinds of ideas coming along. So please join us, and please, you're welcome to email me at info@meherarchive, info@meherarchive.org. If you want to do anything for the Max Baba Zoom, if you want to talk about archiving in any way or Baba stories. So please feel free to reach out to me. I'm going to hand it over to Scott for the closing remarks.
Okay, thank you, Heather. Excuse me. Another thing just to share with all of you, this project, as I mentioned, has already had a tremendous amount of help, many thousands of hours of volunteer contribution. Some people sort of full-time, like Peter and Jeanne, other people, different levels of time. We're going to need a lot of help. There's so much work to be done that the focus, a lot of the focus has been on getting into this building. But now we're in a position, we're looking for volunteers to help with the archiving work, and that need will increase dramatically when we're in the building.
Yes.
So for the types of things that you've seen shown today, the helping to process, rehouse is what we call it, the documents, photographs, scanning, entering metadata for anyone who has a historical knowledge that's really helpful with photographs to say, oh yes, I remember that third person on the right is so-and-so, that someone else might not have that information yet. So there's going to be lots of opportunities to participate and be involved in a variety of levels. And if that's of interest to you, please contact us, and we'll definitely get you lined up and aligned with your interests and skills to see how that will best fit with what Mac's doing, both now and going forward. So that's just an invite to join and have the opportunity to participate, which I think everybody that has, as we've heard today, finds it's been a rewarding opportunity. So thank you to Elaine for your presentation, and of course your vast knowledge and experience, to Claire for what you shared with us, and Jeanne also for everything you shared with us about the building, and to Heather for your work on bringing this together. Diana on the Zoom sideline as well. Everyone's contributed. So thanks to all, and happy Saturday. I had my day wrong, as someone pointed out. But anyway.
That's okay.
Jai Baba to all of you.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.